Greetings, friends, crew member of our beloved, polluted, and unique spacecraft, which, since the last time we met, has taken another turn about its linear axis, and of course, continues creating events in full development. And while the maniac in the White House continues making decisions just like he wants, the man who created an empire, making money, he was signing and continues signing checks, so everyone just says, yes, sir. And now he's the commander-in-chief. Who can stand him? However, he's in charge of the nuclear bomb as well. Well, he shouldn't be suicidal, right? But either way, he's making decisions in a way that contradicts good politics. But let us remember that he's also the commander-in-chief, so he would want to make history, and we need to be careful with characters like such. So with this being said, let's start in New York, because the east coast of the United States is still part of the news. Why? Because this person makes decision in Washington, then again goes to New York, and this is just the beginning. You will see what will happen when he changes things happening. So let's take a look at the events in full development. And let's pay attention to this in front of us. Hundreds of people protest in New York for a very noisy demonstration due to Kavanaugh's confirmation. Who's Kavanaugh? Kavanaugh's appointment is an appointment made by Trump for the Supreme Court. And people are not happy with that decision, specifically those who know the consequences behind this. Mary Madlock says, I think that this is absurd. I don't think anyone can see that he's not lying. He is not there for the Supreme Court, not only for being in the court for life, having a seat there for life in the Supreme Court, because he couldn't have any role in the judicial power anywhere. What do you think this would mean? Well, this would be a new low. There are more lows culturally worldwide. I think that this could take us to a new minimum. So we are angrier than we have been in quite a while. So we will come back to the streets. This is unacceptable. This lady, the candidate who's now president, and Caleb de Jong, members of the protest from all different categories. He said, this is about rights. It's about their rights. I speak about the women. They are the future. As women for the future, we need to defend this right now, for the youth to be protected in the future. It's about environmental rights, about the rights of all Americans, and we're fighting for the right thing. I want to keep these people away from myself and my family. Hundreds of demonstrators reached the street in Manhattan to show their opposition to the possible confirmation of Brett Kavanaugh on the Supreme Court of the States, a position that is a tenure as well. Shinzo Abe from Japan keeps allies in a key position. There's a single woman on the cabinet. And in this official presentation, as you can see, with our traditional etiquette, with the objective of having a good beginning to create a new country, today I reorganized the cabinet. Pictures. And now, he points out what we said before. We're going to listen to the original Japanese audio.
そのために本日、党役員人事、内閣改造を行いました。政権の最重要課題である沖縄の基地負担軽減、確かに、各国と比べて、内閣における、閣僚の女性の比率は、 少ないということについては、認めざるを得ないわけで。
Bueno, releemos algo. Japón acaba de comenzar a crear una
Japan
sociedad en
has
la que las
started
mujeres
creating a
pueden ser más
society
activas
where
y
women
creo que
can
la
become
primera
more active, and I
es
think
educar
that
a
we
las
will
personas para
continue
que puedan
educating people
convertirse
so
en
that they
ministros
can
del
become ministers of the
Bueno,
cabinet.
mantuvo a los ministros clave en sus puestos
He
en una
kept the
reorganización
key
del gabinete que
ministers in
dejó
his
antes
cabinet by
los rubros, incluidas las
reorganizing it,
finanzas, comercio y
including
asuntos
finance,
exteriores,
trade, foreign
al
affairs,
tiempo que designaba una sola mujer para la nueva
but also
alineación del
appointing a
gabinete.
single woman for the new cabinet.
Quien se ha convertido en el empoderamiento femenino en una
This
política de
is
alto
part
perfil.
of
Eligió a
feminine empowerment, so Satsuki Kaptayama was elected as the Minister for Gender Equality. The analyst stated that this appointment is just a minister in a cabinet of 19 members. They all follow the necessary protocol for this. Abe acknowledged that Japan has been left behind based on other nations with numbers of people in the cabinet, and the leader who came back in office was re-elected as leader of the Liberal Democrat Party. So he's going to become the oldest prime minister of Japan. Thousands of Belgians fight against the reforms of the salaries. What the government is doing is indecent. They don't want to negotiate or reach agreements. They will do whatever they want. We directly addressed a brick wall. Sophia said, all measures taken by our government eliminate all options to reduce the speed or to make this slowly. This is not good. We want to restore our rights.
All the measures that our government takes take away all the alternatives to slow down or take it easy. And that's a bad thing. We want to restore them and make them better.
Waving flags, walking in an orderly fashion. Their colors define their perspectives. Thousands of members of unions marched in Brussels on Tuesday to protest against the current proposals for reforming the protest of the government, demanding a decent payment at a reasonable age, not at an age where it's not worth enjoying it. Sophia, representative of one of the unions, said that the measures of the government are eliminating the options to slow down after years of work. For example, they said that the members of the union, people who worked in heavy trade, can retire some months before. However, they will have an immediate reduction of their pensions. So they want something logical, to enjoy their pensions, but with a living wage. In the Valletta port in Italy, this vessel arrived after spending many years in the Mediterranean Sea. It was transporting migrants on board of the Navy patrols, rescued by the Marines, a never-ending problem in the Mediterranean Sea. Bringing the people that were saved in the sea that have killed so many people that we don't know the numbers. But very often, patrolling ships rescue people that are trying to get to Europe, pursuing a better life. 58 immigrants and a dog that stayed at sea for many years were rescued by the aquarium vessel in front of Libya. They were taken to a military ship and brought to Malta. They were rescued from two small ships, including Libyans, Syrians, Palestinians, Pakistanians, and 7 families and 3 children under 5 years of age that risked it all, at least the parents. Children didn't have a choice. 11 migrants were rescued 11 days ago, while the other 47 were rescued aquarium was 5 days of the cost of Malta to wait for better conditions so that they could be transferred. After this, in the midst of the operation, it was agreed that they will not go to Malta because they had the opportunity to have the status of a flag. France, Portugal, Spain, and Germany reached an agreement on Tuesday, September 25, to host the migrants that arrived at Malta after Italy denied their request. So Italians don't want more migrants. Italy is closer to the south, so they don't want more people in. They need to be helped either way. So the story continues. They are lucky, these ones. They were able to reach the continent and didn't drown in the Mediterranean. Erdogan will be the host of the summit on Syria and Russia, Germany, and France. With 4 countries in attendance, Turkey, Russia, France, and Germany, we're going to celebrate the Istanbul summit with a great possibility that it's going to happen before the end of this month or maybe next month. After signing the memorandum, we are strengthening this point in order to avoid any future inconvenience.
Muhtıra imzalamasından sonra daha da güçlendiriyoruz. Ki buralarda herhangi bir sıkıntı yaşanmasın, yaşamayalım.
After that, he added, Russia takes the necessary measures against the possible threat of the Syrian regime in Idlib. And in Turkey, we're taking all the measures against the radical groups in Idlib.
Türkiye olarak biz her türlü tedbiri
We're also taking additional measures with Russia if necessary, and we will do so if it's the case. We will directly speak to the Syrian people and reach a solution here. Be careful. I'm not speaking about the government, I'm speaking about the Syrian people. He stated that Turkey will strengthen the observation points northwest of Syria and will work with Russia against radical groups. Russia completes the delivery of the S-300 missile system to Syria. A meeting of the Security Council of Russia in Moscow, the Ministry of Defense, Sergei Khavryong, stated, we have started a series of activities in order to strengthen aerial defense systems for the Syrian Arab Republic, which main objective is to protect our military personnel. We have completed the delivery of the S-300. This includes 49 pieces of equipment, radio locators with laser, line-in devices, systems for defense control vehicles, and 4 missile launchers. This was delivered to Syria with all the system.
Мы также приступили к поставкам оборудования, завершим полностью всю работу с подготовкой обучения экипажей и завязыванием в единую сеть к 20 октября.
And then added, for the unified control system of the network of aerial defense, we've also delivered this team, and this would have been completed with the training for the crews. Bedouin families call on Angela Merkel to support them with the proposed expulsion of Israel Harman in the West Bank. Una Godahub arrested and said, when it dawns, when I walk to school every day, I am always afraid of my school being demolished by the Israeli. Dramatic statements. What's the strategic value here? Why don't let these peoples develop by themselves and avoid these contaminations and alterations on the landscape? waste waters down that pipe. Where are they headed? Towards the crops. By holding signs of Angela Merkel before a program visit by the German Chancellery, this message was sent. This is courtesy of Hispan TV, 10 minutes about war in Yemen by Saudi Arabia, their geopolitical interests and their allies. On September 2014, the Ansarullah movement and its allies from the army took all the matters about the state after the government of President Abdul Rabu Mansur Hadi stopped the improvement of the social and political security. Then Hadi resigned even though Hezbollah requested him to stay there. Then he fled to Saudi Arabia in the midst of corruption accusations. There was an attack against Yemen on March 2015. The war led by Saudi Arabia in Yemen has been acknowledged as a classical example of a military fiasco because Saudi Arabia and their allies, including the United Arab Emirates, started the strike in Yemen in an attempt to defeat the Ansarullah fighters, eliminate their military capacity, and bring back al-Hadi to power that was their closest allies. Today, after 3.5 years, all these objectives continue being difficult to achieve.
For the Saudis, they started this war with the intention of finishing it within a matter of months. That was the stated aim. It was also meant to be Mohammed bin Salman's explosive entry onto the world stage. They decided to go hard with the military, and it's failed. They failed in their absolutely atrocious bombing campaign.
Saudis and their allies wanted a quick victory, but after the military campaign started, Saudis stated they had destroyed the military capacities of Yemen. The leadership of the coalition ended the Operation Decisive Storm according to a request of the Yemeni government and the President Hadi. They think that the operation achieved the objective and the legitimacy in Yemen has been protected. Additionally, the Hadis lost a great part of their power. Nevertheless, they found a great surprise because Yemenis showed a hard resistance. This costly war continues today. The movement of resistance Ansarullah and its allies in the army continue fighting against the attackers, and they have been able to increase their military capacity. They have fulfilled their threat to take the war to the inside of Saudi Arabia. Fighters from Yemen have different types of missiles in their arsenal. Burkan 1, Burkan 2, Ahram 2 are just some of the missiles that have been manufactured in Yemen for themselves. They are launched almost daily against Saudi objectives. Some of them have hit targets in the inside of the kingdom, causing a lot of damage and fear. The Saudi capital, Riyadh, and the main facilities for oil hundreds of miles away from Yemen are part of their targets. Some missiles from Yemen have also been launched against the UAE.
I think this is just shows how unsuccessful the coalition has been over the last 2.5 years to actually destroy these ballistic missiles, because that was one of the key aims of that operation. That's why Saudi Arabia started the operation in March.
In the meantime, Ansarullah has spoken about the different aircrafts that are able to carry out recognition and combat missions. At the beginning of August, the army and their allies attacked a Saudi military base in Nasir with an unmanned combat plane. On July, Ansarullah informed about the attack with a drone against a refinery of Aramco in Riyadh. These events revealed the failure of the Saudi machinery of war. Some experts believe that the war in Yemen is a new Vietnam for the coalition led by Saudi Arabia.
To a nation, and subjugate them by force and with military means, having basically no legitimacy in that region. You just won't be able to manage a nation. This is a reality of today, that you can't forcibly manage a nation militarily.
Attackers clearly lack a strategy, and this entails great pressure, especially because their losses and the financial costs of war are increasing rapidly. Some months ago, the state media of Saudi Arabia raised the number of deaths in their forces to over 1,000, even though some sources state that the number is well beyond this amount. The war has cost Saudis over $100 billion. This comes in times when the country is facing austerity. Invaders face too many problems. This worsen the conditions, and the members of the coalition led by Saudi Arabia still keep rivalries for the geopolitical interest. The dream of Saudis is to dominate the Middle East and to free the Muslim world. The UAE look to increase their strategical scope. Their actions in South Yemen, as well as their occupancy in the Socotra Island, filled with resources, shows that they try to continue with their own regional agenda. This has created some demonstrations against the Saudi and the Emirates against President Abdul Rabbu Mansur Hadi. Facing a strong resistance, invaders have taken desperate measures. Experts of the United Nations state that the coalition led by Saudi Arabians have killed thousands of civilians in real attacks that have been carried out. Beyond killing those tortured and raping civilians, they have bombed residential areas as well as markets, funerals, weddings, jails, facilities for water supply that have been affected. This has caused the worst humanitarian crisis in the world. Over 22 million people urgently need assistance. A total blockade makes it almost impossible to provide food and medicine to those in need. Civilians, especially children, are more affected by the due to aerial attacks led by Saudis. The number of cases increases, where a great number of children died due to the aerial attacks of Saudi Arabia. In August, there were 2 aerial attacks with deadly consequences in the provinces of Al Hudaydah and Sada, with attacks where dozens of children lost their life. The war of Saudi Arabia is supported by the West. Saudis and the United Arab Emirates are close allies to the United States, the United Kingdom, and France. The Western powers have sold tens of billions of dollars in weapons to the Arab states of the Persian Gulf. The United States have taken another step and militarily been working with the war. The United States provide the attackers different types of military assistance in Yemen.
Backing Saudi aggression against Yemen by cooperating in every way with the Saudi military, targeting intelligence, weapons, sales, and more. The U.S. is a partner in Saudi Arabia's Yemen crimes.
So far, the American administration hasn't listened to stop their attack in Yemen. A growing number of politicians with alternative perspectives believe that this is unconstitutional for the participation of the states in the war.
So we are essentially part of the bombing campaign. We're helping them choose targets, and we are refueling the Saudi bombers that are dropping the bombs. It is said that thousands of civilians have died in Yemen because of this.
In the meantime, the main media of the United States appear to do everything possible to continue with the catastrophe in Yemen under the rug. However, Western media focus on the situation in Syria.
The media is constantly talking about what's happening there. No mention about the resumption of the siege of Hodeidah, which is what's happening in Yemen. The Saudis backed off for a while. Then when they ramped up their siege again, there are 300,000 people there who are really under threat of starving, of dying, of being blown up when they ride a bus, send their kids to school.
In spite of all the support they get from the West, Saudis haven't been able to take away the combat from Yemen from the main post of control. The coalition led by Saudi Arabia has been cooperating with extremist groups Al Qaeda in order to defeat the Ansar Allah movement. However, Houthis still have control of the capital, Sana'a, and many other important cities of the country. One of the last examples of the failure of Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates to take away Ansar Allah is Al Hudaydah city. So far, invaders have affirmed many times by faking information to have captured the city. However, fighters in Yemen still have the city under control, which is a port and route for most of the supplies of humanitarian help to Yemen. The United Nations have stated that 8 million people in Yemen are at threat of dying of famine. That's why attackers have decided to defend Hudaydah to defend the supply of aid. Last years have shown that in spite of all problems, the people in Yemen will continue enduring. Saudis don't understand this, and they have taken them to a war that will not end how they want to. A very raw analysis, very objective from our perspective at least. I wanted to show you, because the media often overhear the news from the Middle East. Remember that we've said that there's someone is trying to change the map, the geopolitical map of the Middle East. As you can see, things are becoming very interesting, just to use a euphemism. I'm not with this, not respecting tragedy. And China, the world power, working with their own influence areas, and they're also reacting to how to test it. How do they test it? Well, they send a ship to see if there's a reaction. We go there. We tell them that it's right to see what they do. And we'll be back with more information about this. Stay where you are. You're going to see how they're playing chess in these areas that we've just spoken about. We'll be right back.
Queremos verdad, reparación integral, pero sobre todo justicia, pero justicia social.
How many ways there are to tell a story? The different perspectives of our nations are on Telesur documentaries. Sundays, only on Telesur.
This October the 7th, the Brazilian people go to the polls in a general election to define the new leadership of the nation. In the midst of a controversial and critical situation for the South American giant, Telesur gives you the most complete coverage of this important date for the region. Follow minute by minute all updates of this event through our website in Spanish and English and on our social networks. Brazil Decides 2018, only on Telesur, the new source of Latin America and the Caribbean.
We're back with more events in full development. And as we said before, we've seen what's happening. We've said many, many times. And we acknowledge what's going to happen as long as China exercises their area of influence, and the United States would want to keep it because since World War II they've been the winners won. And at the end of these wars, well, this is also at stake right now. So now we continue with the same thing. A ship around the area they consider of their direct influence, they go around there, they study the reactions. And that's how many problems are now out of control. Let's get closer here. Okay, it's the right thing to do. Let's take a look at the event in full development. Thank you for your collaboration. Here, there is a statement that really makes us think. We have to translate. This is the document that states that China firmly opposes for a Chinese warship to sail near the coast of China. This is just in from Beijing. The statement of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs from spokesman Hua Chunying about the illegal entry of ships, of Navy ships from the United States in the waters of the Sunshine Islands. Beijing. Tuesday, China showed their opposition to the entry of an American ship in the reefs of China in the South Sea of China, as we said before. USS Decatur, a destroyer, it's always a missile destroyer. That's the Foreign Affairs building, as well as its sailed. The Decatur destroyer arrived at the Mancha Islands on September 3rd without permission of the Chinese government, according to the spokesman of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of China. The reaction is violent and immediate, as it has to be. The army identified the ship and expelled it, highlighting that China is a sovereign country and has sovereignty over Nansha Islands and its water. This is, of course, addressing Washington. The joint effort of China and the Member Association of Nations of Southeast of Asia of the request of South China have led to these events, this stabilization. Now, Catalonia, that threatens to withdraw the support to the Prime Minister of Spain. The support is going to be withdrawn. The President of Catalonia, Quim Torra, stated, "We will not ensure any type of support to Pedro Sanchez's government since November if there's no possibility for a deep dialogue respect for Catalonia with self-determination."
We offer
the Spanish state becoming one of the progressive democracies as the UK and Canada. Sanchez had the chance to see this firsthand in Canada. You can win or lose a referendum, but democracy will always be strengthened just like the societies. So the President of Catalonia requested the Prime Minister of Spain, Pedro Sanchez, to remember a self-determination mechanism for the region, or the country will withdraw their support for the President, the Parliament. Parliament of Catalonia rejecting Puigdemont's suspension. This is Barcelona, Quim Torra arriving at the negotiations, and as we can see, the events are taking place there. The visit is related to the political reality. These are calm images, but there's a lot behind them. The Parliament of Catalonia in their session, President Quim Torra from Catalonia arriving, meeting with the different parts for independence.
D'acord amb l'article 25.1,
del Reglament del Parlament, la Comissió de l'Estatut dels Diputats va aprovar el proppassat 28 de setembre el dictamen sobre la suspensió de drets i deures parlamentaris de diversos diputats.
Gràcies, senyor president.
Esto no se trata del tema de la independencia.
This is not about independence, it's about respecting the results of the ballots, and those who elected the parliament come from which kind of citizens, first or second class.
184.094 ciutadans que han decidit que aquests homes siguin la seva veu al Parlament són ciutadans de primera o són ciutadans de segona. Moltes gràcies.
Gerard Gómez dice,
Gerard Gómez said,
as
the Parliament of Catalonia, we have to defend the 135 legislators here. This young man without not so much protocol in his clothes.
Pensin el que pensin, siguin escollits per la llista que siguin escollits, votin el que votin. És obligació del Parlament defensar a tots els diputats.
Whatever they vote, is the duty of the Parliament to defend their legislators in the Parliament of Catalonia. Inés Arrimadas said, young people there, and many women as well. See how strong her words were. Well, the rest of the citizens have to do what the judges state. Even all mortals have to obey what the judges say. As you're part of the separatist zealot, you think you have to vote for a judicial decision where you want or not. What do you think they have? Do you have an ID for impunity? The Superman cape? Do you think that you can do this? Do you think that's your responsibility, the one that you have from this place? When you accept it, I think that there weren't many people volunteered to be a president. So could someone explain this? There's an attack from the outside and an attack to democracy from the inside of the parliament. All encouraged by you, the President of the Generalitat. Instead of being the President of the Generalitat, it seems that you are the leader of a separatist and violent command. This is what you want to play. Well, quite a lot of words saying that they don't want to be different from Spain, they want to be there. However, the Colonial Assembly allowed the segment of parliament that have fled from Spain or are in jail to give the right to vote to a member of the party. Madrid called regional elections in Catalonia in December to stop the movement for independence that sank Spain in its deepest crisis for decades. However, the plan failed, and the secession is kept a scarce majority. The Spanish government imposed a direct government in Catalonia after the independence after referendum, and then Madrid has showed their independence, and Quintorra is the new regional leader. There are different ways of voting, making decisions here that are then seen on the electronic board.
No hi ha més temes a tractar, s'aixeca la sessió. Gràcies.
135 legislators. Meeting is adjourned. Nothing else to tackle. And this continues in full development. So far, there's nothing defined. This is the plurinational state of Bolivia. President Evo Morales will dispute the verdict of the International Court of Justice for the excess of sea for Bolivia. And Evo, with his own style, said, this shows the contradictions of the parties, as well as their decision of not creating justice for Bolivia. First, how can the court be impartial? Or be together with a group? You know where this comes from, where this injustice comes from our invasion. It isn't over, even though the court decided not to accept this maritime vindication, just like they have accompanied most of the countries of the world, multilateralism. As there are Secretary Generals of the United Nations, as Kofi Annan, may he rest in peace, and other characters, former presidents. This will continue because it's a request of the people of Bolivia. I don't know if the court understands this. Hopefully, calling the court will help us to speak once again for the neighboring peoples. So the International Court of Justice on October 1st stated that they cannot force Chile about negotiating for sovereign access to the sea, even though the loss was a clear hit against the government. He said the fight is not over and hopes to speak with Chile to solve this problem. Bolivia gave the majority of its coast in Chile in a treaty in 1904 after the Pacific War. Open letter for the Peace Commission of the Senate, the Congress of the Republic Bogota. Even though the peace agreement wasn't respected by soulless predators, we still dream for the peace in Colombia. At least 3 acts have taken away the hopes to the abyss of the failed peace processes. The lack of legal security and modifying the original text, as well as the lack of fulfillment for essential aspects of the agreement. Those were optimistic times. Legal uncertainty with Jesus Santos for extradition, with the staging created by the General Attorney, the Ambassador of the State, and the DEA. The tolerant decision made to sabotage peace took away the little confidence that was left in the former fighters. The General Attorney's office is a factory of lies to bring some people to the law, but not thinking about the main negotiators from the guerrilla, even bringing the possibility to the category of crime to justify the extradition by looking to sink the collective will for peace. We are facing the shameless abuse of power by withdrawing our sovereignty to a foreign power. We cannot say no to peace. And it's the most important right. They don't have common sense to create the destiny of Colombia that could not be one of war. Why are the states winning by stepping over Colombia's peace? Very little has strengthened it to reinforce it. For example, they could have read after the agreement with John Kerry, the former secretary. They opened this possibility in a meeting that we held in the capital of the island. Those good intentions were dragged by the wind. Changing the original text of the agreed changed the Havana Agreement into a terrible Frankenstein. Characters that were never forged by being members of the parties decided to change what was drafted with so much love and effort after the delivery and giving up the weapons. This is a trap. We cannot betray peace like this. The agreements that were solemnly signed are there to be fulfilled. Where else in the world has something like this happened? The state that signed the agreement killed it by speaking about the independence of power, and they have the constitutional resource of harmonic collaboration. Then they didn't acknowledge an international obligation in the fact that this is a special agreement of the Article 3 of the Geneva Agreements that holds the range of official document of the Security Council of the United Nations. We should add the verdict of the Constitutional Court that clearly and categorically decided that this agreement couldn't be modified by the next three governments. Former President Juan Manuel de la Paz didn't have enough bravery to use the powers passed on him by the Constitution. He decided not to cross this because he was afraid of the event. The jurisdiction for peace is not the one that we approved in Havana, however, the one that the enemies in Concordia wanted. This is not for those involved in the conflict. They stole third parties from a jurisdiction. They hunted the truth, and this is the only thing that could heal the wounds created by the conflict and at the same time create a new environment of coexistence. They also widened the universe of those away in order to ensure a long life to impunity. With their own hands, Martinez created the special jurisdiction for peace, the minds of reincidents, name-giving, and other possibilities to change former guerrilla members in order to quench their thirst that they share with certain elites of power. The fast track of the legislation has killed important aspects of the peace agreement with the blessing of the court. We should not forget that the JEP procedure law was approved unilaterally without listening to the opinion of CSAVI, the Commission for Follow-up and Verification of the Implementation. We only were kept with the impression that the concern of the government was fake, with words that meant nothing but air, and then with no euphemisms, the essential parts of the peace agreement have been betrayed. The previous Congress sank the political reform and the special decisions for peace didn't fully apply amnesty. There are still militia in jail 5 years after the first partial agreement. There aren't any title for lands or funds of 3 million hectares for those who don't have one, or anything that could mean the dignification of life on the fields. The situation has stopped because the General Attorney himself doesn't allow a differential treatment for the poor women and the harvesters, because farmers and poor women cannot formalize the ownership of land as the economic alternative options. This person has sabotaged the special unit for fighting against militia by imposing with this that over 50,000 imputation of paramilitary members and economic support for these criminal structures that, according to historic memory, have killed 100,000 Colombians to be in the General Attorney's office with impunity. The agreement had the structure of fail that weighs as much as Egyptian premium, which was first signing the armistice without previously agreeing the social reincorporation of militiamen. This is the cause of the problems that today's ETCRs face, the land space for training due to the lack of fulfillment by the state itself. We naively believed the words and the good faith of the government, even though Manuel Marulanda Vélez always warned us that weapons were the only guarantee for fulfillment of the agreements. Today, they're killing the members of the guerrilla. They're killing them one by one with the indifference of the authorities. The same thing's happening with social leaders whose sacrifice seems to never end. Keep in mind that so far, there isn't any reimbursement to finance productive projects in these spaces. Someone tell us whose wallets are those where the resources after the conflict are, so generously placed by the donor countries. Ladies and gentlemen of the Congress, our main concern is how to bring back peace from the abyss on the failed agreements that it was taken to. We would like to know your appreciation of this. Well, guess which country can the drug traffickers claim the police? They were selling coca paste that was dismantled lately, Andrés Cardoso with information. They banned fake drug traffickers by making a corn shipment as coca in Caquetá to finish this business. They were withheld, they stole the money, as well as their other belongings. Around 4 claims were gotten by the authorities. 4 claims by the authorities. 4 claims. They said that they were members of an armed group to trick other drug traffickers that when reaching the zone for selling this, they were withheld, they were stole of their money as well as their belongings. The Colombian police, tell me, I'm really sorry, but I was buying some coke, and there were some people, some sandwiches, and they sold me corn syrup. So I would like to denounce this right now. I'm so sorry, what a tragedy. We will look for the son of bitches. Well, guess which country allows drug traffickers to denounce these things with the police? Colombia, where drug delivery is quickest in the world. It's faster to get coke than pizza. The Bolivarian National Guard dismantled in Barrio de Mantequero Island in Amazonas, Venezuela, a laboratory for producing coca paste operated by Colombian citizens. As informed on Monday by Jorge Arreaza, Minister of Foreign Affairs, in a statement. The National Guard detected some Colombian soldiers in Barrio de Mantequero Island where the Autana drug lab was dismantled according to military sources. There were 3 Piranha-type ships from the Colombian army with 15 soldiers in charge of another vessel. There was a Colombian flag on the camp. This event was discovered on Thursday in a patrol by the 63 Amazonas Department in a patrolling type C boat GNV, Golf of November Bravo, Charlie. First 17, in charge of Helio Leal Castejón, mayor. This patrol is part of the Centinela plan and the operation order against threats to the nation 2018. According to the current report, we had access to this information. Well, so these are the events, and they show who honor their wealth and who openly mock all the initiatives to collaborate with peace. Well, This is realpolitik, these are the neighbors that we have, and this is a historic tradition. Since Trader Santander and until now. What else could we expect? Wherever you may be, on that side of the screen, thank you for allowing us to be there with you. From Studio 3 of Venezuela Televisión, VTV, here I close Dossier, the doyen program in the Western Hemisphere of international satellite information. This was Walter Martinez, producer and host. Director, the floor is all yours.